I'm just trying out things.
You should go.
I'm going. I'm just trying. I'm doing this video again because my daughter tags me in it, and I so like to amuse her. So this is a video about first. Let me see. The first boyfriend I ever had, because I was a fast one, I was in first grade. His name was Richard. That name's kind of haunted me now and again. It's come back to get me a couple of times. But his name was Richard. He's also someone that I bit in the stomach because he wouldn't play with me. So that was the first bite I ever gave somebody. It was him. And believe it or not, he was my first kiss. I was the door monitor, and he was walking through the door, and he kissed me. And I was really upset because I thought I was going to be pregnant. And that was because my mom had told me that if a boy touches you or kisses you, you get pregnant. So I was convinced, at that young age I was already pregnant. My first, let me see, what else can I tell you about my first? My first trip was when I was very young. I was a baby. My parents took me to Florida. I was very young. That was the first time I was on a plane. One of my first car trips that was long was to Florida as well. My dad loved to drive, and often we would get in the car on the weekend and he'd say we're going for a drive, and we'd end up in another state because he loved to drive that much. My first pet, I had a poodle. She was beautiful. Her name was Gypsy, and she was given to me by my Uncle John, who is deceased now, so that has a lot of memory. She was a great, great, beautiful dog, and she lived for a very long time. Hi there. My first, let me see what else. My first lunatic child, and only child, is the one that was just in the video behind. No, she's quite delightful. What other first did I tell about, Oriana?
What did you tell about your first car?
My first car. The first car I had was a Mustang. It was blue. It got stolen. I've had 3 cars stolen. Lucky me.
What was your first, I don't know, first crush?
My first crush. I had a lot of crushes. I crushed a lot. I told you. I was one of those kind of girls. I had a crush on Andy Williams because my mom listened to him. And I had a crush on Paul Anka. I really liked him. And let me see, who else I know. Here it is. The Confession That Kills. My really first big crush. And it took me down a very interesting trip, was Joe Namath.
What was the first sporting event you ever went to?
The first sporting event I ever went to. The very first sporting event I went to was a Giant game. I'm not a Giant fan, but, good luck to them. Because my dad had season tickets, and I went to a Giant game. That was my first. I went to my first Ranger game when I was 8.
When was the first time you wore makeup?
The first time I wore makeup, I was a late bloomer on the makeup thing. I probably didn't wear makeup till I was about 17. Anything else?
Did you not like it, or you just
No, it just wasn't, it wasn't something we did in my generation,
Your gen.
That sounds like my genitals. I don't know. My gens. Which, by the way, here's a funny, I call my gens hockey. My hockey. How funny is that? Okay. Does anybody want to know that I went out to lunch today? I know I'm off the topic here, but I got the number 8 for my table. And how exciting is that? Because that's Brandy Press number. I love you, Brandon Press, and I miss you. Go ahead. What
That's
else?
in like every video. If you're not singing Call Me Short Avery, you're professing your
Yeah,
love to
Shawnee. I don't know where you been. Where you been, Shawnee? Hey, Shawnee, where you been? Call me.
What other first?
Call me Sean Avery.
There. Now it's
I
in
had
every
to.
video.
So look, but I shout out to a lot of people. I've already shout out to Zach. Zach on MTV.
You've only had one wedding, so that's your first.
Yes, my first and only wedding occurred in 1989.
Yeah, and for those that ask, I have a father. I'm not sure why
he's
I always
just
ask where he works a lot.
We've been married for 23 years. He's a really good guy. He works a lot.
We should put Dad in a video.
Yeah, we will. We'll have Dad in a video.
He'll probably be in one of my vlogs.
Yeah, he's a very low-key kind of guy. Let me see. My first broken heart.
You talked about that once.
Yeah, well, my first broken heart occurred when I was about 16. I've had a lot of broken hearts. Men have broken my hearts, and I still like them most of the time. What else? My first what? My first cell phone, Ori talked about her first cell phone. My first cell phone was about this big. Wait, I can't even get my 2 hands in it. That was that big.
Her cell phone was.
It was like
Oh
about that
my
big, like the
God.
size of a regular phone. And you could only get a certain amount of minutes. And my husband drilled into my head, only use it if it's an emergency. And I would literally like rush everybody off the phone. Like I'd call my mother and I'd say, I'm coming to you, bye. And that would be it. Because, you know, you only had a certain amount of minutes. So it was a really huge phone. It was made by Qualcomm. That was my first cell phone. Let me see. My first spring break, I went to Fort Lauderdale. That's pretty cool. My first job that I consider my real job, like a first real job I had, I was still in school, but I worked in advertising. I worked for a wonderful advertising agency, and it really was one of the best places I ever worked. I got so many wonderful experiences out of it. I loved all the people I worked with, and I still keep in touch with a lot of them. So my first job was in advertising. Let me see, what else? I don't know.
I think that's good.
That's good. If there's any other first you'd like to know, I will not tell you about my first hockey experience. I mean sexual. There's other things I won't talk about because, you know, the people just wouldn't give permission. That's not nice to do to them. But if there's anything else you want to know that I didn't cover that's my first, by all means,
Ask her.
ask me. And Ori's going to put all my social networks on the bottom.
They're already there. They're pre-there.
They're
All of
pre-there.
it.
Stop now because I'm moving on to 7 minutes and I talk too much. So have a great day, everybody. Happy August 1st. Bye.
Woo!